Welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Thank you. So this is Isaac, of course, speaking to Jacob, again echoing his wife Rebekah's words to Jacob that he needs to leave, except the reason here is that he needs to find a wife from Rebekah's family and not marry one of the women from the Canaanites. And what's interesting is that Jacob here, in a sense, vets the blessings with which he had blessed Jacob unknowingly, but here he does it consciously. Vayiten lecha et birkat Avraham, and he should give to you, Jacob, the blessing of Abraham, lecha, to you, uzar acha itach, and to your seed with you. In other words, it should just be Jacob's progeny. L'rishtecha, look at this. This is what's causing us all the issues, right? To inherit et eretz megurecha, to inherit the land of your sojournings, asher natan Elohim la'Avraham, which the Lord gave to Abraham. So this is our claim. This is our claim, the Jewish people's claim to the land of Israel. And of course, we claim descendancy through Isaac, whereas the Arabs claim descendancy through Ishmael. And that rivalry between Ishmael and Isaac, of course, is in a way foreshadowed by what we read in the Torah. But the good news is that Ishmael finally concedes to Isaac's ascendancy, because when they go to bury Abraham, we see Isaac's name coming before Ishmael's. So we read that at the end of Chaye Sarah, last week's Torah portion. At any rate, there is this idea of claim to the land of Israel. But again, never forgetting that the real issue of the land of Israel isn't so much, the fact that it's arable land in the midst of a lot of wilderness, but rather that it is a nexus point between the divine and this world. And the fact that so much blood has been spilt in that area of the world is in effect a visible tragedy in terms of how human beings understand what their role is and what their connection is to God and to God's universe. The fact that we cannot get along. And it's interesting that there may be a need to understand and to be able to respect people's claims and people's the sense that the Arabs are also have a connection to it. And of course, I have mentioned the fact that we talk about the 10 lost tribes and the idea that those tribes mean that there is Israelite blood of those who are descendants of Jacob in amongst pretty much all the peoples of the world. So going on, let's take a look. We might have some Rashi on this. Yes, here it is. Et Birkat Avraham, the blessing of Abraham. She'amar lo, who said to her, Ve'escha lagoy gadol. So even though it doesn't say that explicitly in the text, we are looking at what blessings did God give Abraham, and knowing that they get transferred to Jacob as well. I shall make you a great nation. Again, this idea of bracha essentially meaning plenitude, magnitude, etc. V'hit barchu bezaracha, and they shall be blessed by your seed. This is again the blessing that God gave to Abraham, that people should be blessed through his seed, that his seed should be a blessing to the people of this world. Iyu otan brachot she'amurot lecha bishvilcha. Okay, so those blessings that are said to you, bishvilcha, that says on your account, but there are other texts that read that differently and say, from you, mimcha, from you. Yetze oto hagoy, that nation shall come from, that nation shall emerge, for oto hazera hamavorach, and that will be the seed that is blessed. So, going on. Oops, it's a little bit too much there. Vayishlach Yitzchak et Yaakov, and Isaac sent Jacob, Vayelech Padan Aram, and he went to Padan Aram. El Lavan bet Betuel, to Lavan, son of Betuel Ha'arami, the Aramean, Achi Rivka, the brother of Rivka, Em Yaakov ve'Esav, Rivka, the mother of Jacob and Esau. Interesting, these sentences as to what they're supposed to imply. So let's take a look at what Rashi says. Em Yaakov Esav. So what are these words? What are these words there to inform us? And Rashi, in a very rare moment, says, Eini yodea, I have no idea, I don't know, ma melamdenu, what this is supposed to teach us. So I would like to offer something, not that I would in any sense compare anything that I know to Rashi's encyclopedic knowledge, but at least it's just a thought that I have. So there we go. Let's take a look at it. So the fact that Rebecca is the mother of Jacob and Esau, even though remember Esau is the firstborn, and it doesn't say the mother of Esau and Jacob. But nevertheless, the idea that we are still related, that they share a common mother, and that the idea here, because I love to think, Darcheha Darche Noam, that when we put the Torah back in the ark, we quote the book of Proverbs, I believe, where we say its paths are pleasantness, Noam, v'chol nitivoteha shalom, and all its paths are peace. That the idea that we have to remember that to understand that the Torah is there to help us find a way through justice and compassion to find a way to live peacefully, because we know human beings are a scrappy lot, and unless we train ourselves, that's the thing. If we're left to our own devices, we'll self-destruct. But on the other hand, we have a tool, an incredible tool, by which to, in fact, allow human life to thrive and to take that potential that human beings have to create a paradise. So I'd like to think that that's why this mentions that even though it seems as if Rivka had rejected Esau, and that's why it's mentioning Rivka as opposed to Isaac, that the fact is that even though Esau and Jacob at this point are mortal enemies, they don't have to be. They don't have to be. So you can make out of that whatever you like. Vayar Esav, and Esau saw ki ve'rach Yitzchak et Yaakov, that Isaac had blessed Jacob. This is interesting. This is interesting because this is possibly the beginning of a process of reconciliation. But the fact is that he realized that that Jacob was blessed legitimately, certainly at this point. So it's interesting because we see that Esau does something which I think we ought to, all of us do, and that is that when we encounter a situation that is causing us problems, right, an adversarial situation, the most important question we should ask ourselves is, what am I doing to cause this? It's always so easy to again, a word I learned from Lauren, to externalize and to blame everything on everyone else and never say to ourselves, wait a second, what am I doing to create this situation, this bad situation, this adversarial situation? And the truth is, Esau is doing this. Very, very interesting. So let's see, you'll see in what way. So he had blessed Isaac, Isaac had blessed Jacob, Veshilach oto Padan Aram, and sent him to Padan Aram. And he understood lakachat lo misham isha, to take from there a wife. Bevorcho oto, when he v'varacho oto, when he blessed him, in blessing him. Vayitzav alav lemor, and that he had commanded him with the words, saying, Lo tikach isha, you shall not take a wife, mibnot Canaan, from the daughters of Canaan. And we have learned in a previous chapter that this is exactly what Esau had done. He had taken wives from Canaanite women, and he realized this. He realizes this. Okay. So, and he sees what's going on, and he opens his eyes on this. So we'll see his attempt to try and resolve this in a moment. But the fact that he's looking at this, and I don't necessarily feel that he is resenting this. He's actually asking himself the question, why is life treating him this way? So going on, let's take a look at, let's go here. Let's see. No, there's no commentary yet. So let's keep going. Vayishma Yaakov el Aviv, and Jacob listened, he hearkened to his father, ve'el imo, and to his mother, vayelech Padan Aram, and he went to Padan Aram. So again, Vayishma Yaakov. Mechubar, so the fact is sort of we've had this parenthetical statement about Esau, and that's what Rashi's telling us, is that this statement here, right here, Vav, is actually a parenthetical statement. And so we need to, in a sense, continue the idea. Mechubar le'inyan shelamala. He says this sentence is actually connected to a previous sentence, not the immediate sentence. But let's just take a look. I want to make sure, right? So let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly, right? So excuse me. Let's just keep going. Forget what I just said. I apologize. This is connected to the matter there. Vayar Esav ki varechi Yitzchak v'gomer. That is the sentence that says that Esau saw how Isaac had blessed v'gomer. V'chi shalach oto Padan Aram, and that he had sent him to Padan Aram. V'chi shama Yaakov el aviv. Okay, so the point. Forgive me. I am going to have to go back. Sadly, I have to do this at times. Even though I've prepared this material, I don't always remember exactly how this works. So he is saying that Esau saw how Jacob had listened to his father, etc. V'halach Padan Aram, and had gone to Padan Aram, and going on, v'chi ra'ot b'not Canaan, and that in fact the daughters of Canaan were wicked. V'halach gamhu el Mishael, and so that connects it to the fact that, as you'll see in the next sentence, that he's going to Ishmael. So now he's going to a member of the family. So that's interesting that he's saying, Rashi is in fact telling us just the opposite. You have to forgive me, please, that this sentence that Jacob listened to his mother and his father is actually connected to the idea of what Esau was seeing. In other words, he not only saw how Isaac had blessed Jacob, but he also saw how Jacob listened to his father and his mother. That's also important too, and actually had left home as a result. So Ishmael saw all of this. Okay. Vayar Esav kiraot benot Canaan, and Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan were considered wicked, be'enei Yitzchak aviv, in the eyes of Isaac his father. So this is also telling us something about. I'll finish this off. But what it is also saying is the degree to which Esau still loved Isaac. I believe that's what it's saying. Vayelech Esav el Yishmael. So consequently, Esau goes to Yishmael, although that is sort of ironic, right? Because we know of the fact that Isaac and Ishmael, in a sense, were rivals. But at any rate, he's thinking, got to go to a member of the family. He goes to Ishmael. Vayikach et Machalat bat Yishmael ben Avraham, and so he took Machalat, the daughter. This is the woman's name, the daughter of Yishmael ben Avraham, son of Abraham. Achot Nevayot, the sister. That is Machalat, was the sister of Nevayot. al nashav lo lisha, along with his wives that he had already as a wife. And it's interesting. I think it's interesting partially because on the one hand, Esau thinks he's doing something right. He thinks that he, like Jacob, is trying to listen to what his father wants to him to do. But he doesn't have all the information, right? He isn't considering all the information. He's only doing it on the basis of some information. At any rate, let's take a look. Let's make sure we cover everything with Rashi. Okay, so you can see there's this tremendous Rashi, this huge Rashi here that we'll get started on now. We'll do a little bit of it, and I can tell you that when we meet again on Friday, we should, at the next lesson, we should, you might want to have a pencil and paper. All right, let's take a look at this. So the sister of Nevayot. Mimashma Shinemar bat Yishmael. From what is stated here in the text, that she was the daughter of Mishmael, a Niyodea Shehi Achot Nevayot. In other words, what Rashi is saying is, if it already says that she was the daughter of Ishmael, and we know elsewhere that one of Ishmael's children was Nevayot, don't we already know that she is the sister of Nevayot? Why does the Torah, in other words, why does the Torah have to state that she was the sister of Nevayot? Illa lamdenu, but it teaches us, shemet Yishmael, that Ishmael died, mi sheyada le'esav, excuse me, yeah, it means, so it could mean when he had betrothed her to Esau. Kodem nisuin, prior to marriage. In other words, there were two stages to getting married. The first was something called erusin, which was betrothal. But in other words, the fact that this woman is now designated to this particular man. And then there's the marriage ceremony. We've taken both these stages and combined them together nowadays, and for a long time, they've been put right next to each other. But there were these two stages. So Ishmael died prior to the actual marriage. Vehisi'a Nevayot achiha. So consequently, Nevayot, her brother, actually married her to Esau. Right. Now we get on to what's going to follow here is a tremendous chronology where Rashi starts to explain the chronology going on and how we can figure out the various ages of Jacob, etc., based on this. In other words, so when various things happened in Jacob's life. So let's take a look. We'll get started on this. We're not going to be able to get that far on it, but we'll do the best we can. Madnu, and we learn from this, Shahaya Yaakov betoch haperek, that at that particular moment, Jacob was ben Samech Gimel. He was 63 shanim. He was 63 years old. So we learn that at this particular moment, in other words, when Jacob left his parents and left to go to Lavan, he was 63 years old. Shahare Yishmael ben Ayin Daled Shanim Haya. How do we know this? Because Yishmael was 74 years old, Keshenolad Yaakov, when Jacob was born. Okay. So remember, okay, we'll see how this works out, right? Jacob, of course, okay, they're both children of Isaac, right? Esau and Jacob are both children of Isaac, and Ishmael is Isaac's brother, right? And Jacob, of course, is Isaac's son. So how do we figure this out? So Ishmael was 74 years old when Jacob was born, right? Why? How do we figure this out? Sheyud Dalet Shana Haya Gadol Yishmael miYitzchak, because we know that Ishmael was 14 years older than Isaac. How do we know this? Okay, we know this because when Abraham received the message that he was to be circumcised, we know he was 90 years old. Tells us in the text. Actually, I think I have on the next page, if I'm not mistaken. I started to write out this. Here we go. All right, here we go. Okay, Ishmael was 74 years when Jacob was born. He was 14 years older than Isaac. And how do we know this? Because in Genesis 17:1, we read how Abraham was 90 when Ishmael was born. Okay, and we read how on that day Abraham not only circumcised himself, but sorry, forgive, I should not say Ishmael. Let's make sure we have this. Sorry. Right. I've got this wrong. Let me make sure I've got this right. Forgive me. It says that he was 90 when Ishmael was born. Abraham was 99. That's Genesis 17:1, when he was told of Isaac's coming birth a year later. And Ishmael, this is correct, right? Well, and the males of Abraham's household were circumcised. It says on that day when God tells Abraham, sorry, okay, forgive me. So he's 99 years old when he's told to get circumcised. But it mentions that Ishmael was 13 years old at the time. So in Genesis 17, what's confusing me is this all happens in the chapter where Abraham has to get circumcised, which is a year before Isaac's birth. And it says that Abraham was 99 years old. And it also mentions that on that day that he was told, Abraham circumcised himself and also Ishmael. And in Genesis 17:25, it says that Ishmael was 13 years old. So we know this from the text itself. The text itself tells us this. And what I did in preparing this was to try and find the actual references in the text so that we know that Rashi is not just taking this out of his thumb. It's there in the text. Sorry about this. Let me get back in here. Okay. So we now know that the point is that Isaac is 14 years younger than Ishmael. Why? Because Isaac was born when Abraham was 100. Ishmael was circumcised when Abraham was 99. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let's see. Let me find the place. Right. Make sure I have the place. Right. Okay. Let's see how Rashi's working this out. I'm finding the place. Okay. Ishmael bin Ayin Daled Shanim Haya. Okay. He was 74 years old. Keshenolad Yaakov, when Jacob was born. How do we figure this out? Okay. So we're saying he was 74. Right. Sheyud Daled Shana Haya Gadol Yishmael miYitzchak, because as we've established, Ishmael was 14 years older than Isaac. So we got that now. And that's why I said you're going to need a pencil and paper. Yitzchak ben Samach Shana belidet otam, right? And we know that Isaac was 60 years old when Esau and Jacob were born, right? So again, I have the reference there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a marker in here. 1 second. So I can keep my place if I refer back to that other sheet. So give me a moment here. Okay. Let's see where we're saying, okay. Okay. Where did we say that Isaac was 60 years old? Right, there we are. Okay, so, right. Okay, so there we go. Let's see here. So I want you to see this. It says specifically in the text, in Genesis, excuse me. Let me see if I can print this down here. Okay. Okay. So we know he was 60. Why? Because Isaac was 40 when he married Rivka. That's in Genesis 25:20. We read how Isaac was 40 years old. And Esau and Jacob were born when Isaac was 60. So in other words, it took 20 years for him to finally have children with Rivka. She was also barren, and that's in Genesis 25:26. So if Isaac was 60 and Ishmael was 14 years older, he would have been 74 at the time. Okay, so let's go back up here. And then we'll pick it up. Okay, so Hare Ayin Daled, that is, so Ishmael would have been 74 years old. Ushnotav hayu kuf lamed zayin. And we read elsewhere that he was 137. He lived 137 years old. Shenemar, as it states, va'ele shnei chayei Yishmael. It says again at the end of Chayei Sarah, this were the years of Ishmael's life, and it says they were 137 years old, Vagomer, etc. Nimsa Yaakov keshemet Yishmael. So now we can figure it out that Jacob left at the same time when Ishmael died. We had just developed that, right? So Yishmael, keshemet Yishmael. So when Ishmael died, ben Samach Dimel Shanim, he would have been 63 years old. He would have been that. In other words, what we're doing is we're subtracting 100 and let's make sure 137, right? And from how old he was when he was from 74, and that's how we know how old Jacob was when he left. Okay, so I'm going to put this here because we're going to learn a whole bunch of different things as a result of this. So I'm going to go back to this sheet before I stop the share, right? So at 74, if Ishmael died at the age of 137, that's in Genesis 25:17, then Jacob would have been 63 years old. That's what we said, right? In other words, 137 minus 74 when he left home. So that the fact that it says that Rivka was the sister of, I think, was it right? Let me make sure. Sorry, forgive me. Too many names, right? That Machalat, right, the wife of Ishmael, was the sister of Nevayot, and that we can infer from the fact that the text says that it implies that Nevayot was the one who married Machalat to Esau, and that Ishmael, he did that because Ishmael had died, that we know how old Ishmael was at the time. So we can now figure out that how old Jacob was when he left home. So I'm going to leave it at that for today. And we are going to, please God, next time we meet, we'll try and see if we can get through all of this to finish up the Rashi on this particular text. Wow. My apologies for not being as clear as I would have liked to have been. So this is something unusual. First of all, Rashi is seldom so lengthy. And the other piece, of course, is the amount of arithmetic that we're having to do now in trying to calculate this. So, do I see a piece of paper in your hands?
Well, no, I mean, I have the benefit of this art scroll, which really covers the Rashi in great detail.
Yes.
And there's a lot more to come, as you said.
Right.
The quick question I've got is the wives of Ishmael, were they Egyptian? Were they Canaanite?
The two former wives were, I believe, Hittite.
Hittites.
It
Okay,
says
which would have
it
been,
explicitly in the
yes,
previous
yes,
chapter. Yes.
right. I knew they were something.
Right.
And so, when we see that Esau finds that uh, Jacob and Rebekah, I'm sorry, Isaac and Rebekah do
Right.
not like the Canaanite wives
Yes.
that Esau has taken, Esau is looking and saying, well, what did Ishmael do? Ishmael took wives Hittites, and
Wait.
they were, pardon me,
Sorry. Forgive me. No. So I was confusing that. I thought you
Ishmael
were
took,
asking me about Esau. Esau's
no,
previous wives were
I'm talking
Hittite.
about
I believe. I'd have to go
Ishmael.
check and make sure.
I think they
Ishmael,
were,
it says explicitly that that Hagar found an Egyptian wife for
right.
Ishmael. Thank you. Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yes, go on.
So in any event, it was okay. I don't know if Ishmael had Abraham's blessing on that, or if Abraham had
Mm,
totally divested himself
mm.
of Ishmael by that point.
At that point, that's the way we're to understand it. Remember, he had sent off Hagar and Ishmael twice.
Right,
The second time, she did not return. Okay.
right,
And there it
right.
says, so basically, I'm not saying that he never saw Ishmael again, ever. Maybe not.
Well,
Right.
Ishmael helped bury him.
That's right. But he wouldn't have seen him at that point,
He
right?
wouldn't have seen him,
No,
but
Abraham
nonetheless,
wouldn't have
there's
seen him.
still a connection there.
Right. Right. But
So
it's part, yeah.
what one looks at Esau saying, well, they don't like my Canaanite
Mhm.
wives, but my uncle
Mhm.
Ishmael
Right.
took not wives, and he got along okay. And that was just something that struck me in terms of saying, well, what was so bad about the Canaanite wives as opposed to what Ishmael had chosen to marry?
Right, but on the other hand, if basically Ishmael and Hagar had nothing to do with Abraham, the only
Right.
time that okay, we do believe that Hagar and Keturah, right? We read how Abraham after Sarah dies, Abraham marries Keturah. The tradition is that Keturah and Hagar are one and the same. All right, but by that time, Ishmael would have already been married to the Egyptian woman.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So,
Okay. Fine. I just wanted to clarify that in my
yeah,
mind.
no. It's a good point. No, I think it's
Okay.
I'm glad you did. Right.
All right.
Right. So it still would be a major distinction, I think. Although both the Egyptians and the Canaanites were basically descendants of Ham, of Noah's third son, Ham.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So they are connected, but of course different nations.
Sure. Okay.
And yeah,
That makes things a bit clearer to me.
right.
All right. That was my comment.
Yes,
Okay.
but no. So if I'm understanding you correctly, and that part of Ishmael's log, sorry, not Ishmael, Esau's logic,
Esau's.
Esau's logic was that if his uncle had married an Egyptian, an Egyptian woman, and that may be the purpose, by the way, of why the Torah actually mentions it, because we need to ask ourselves, why is the Torah saying these things? What is it? I mean, that's the point of Rashi, right? Where he says, I don't know what I'm supposed to infer from this
Yeah.
that every sentence, is dripping with meaning and a message and a lesson. I mean, I think you're doing a great job in sort of exploring what that, why we were given that particular information.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, I mean that definitely adds some logic to it. Although again, Rebecca would be, Rebecca's family would be from Shem, right?
All
So
Oh,
right.
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Harlan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think that Esau uh, finally decided to marry Ishmael's daughter.
Right.
After he
Correct.
married the Canaanites, then he decided, oh my God, my
Right.
father and mother don't like what I did.
Yeah.
So he married Ishmael's daughter
Right.
to make sure that it
Right.
was in the family.
Correct. That was his intention. Absolutely. He was trying to, as I was trying to explain, that at least he was saying, why am I not getting blessed, et cetera, et cetera. That he may have had at least that much of consideration.
Yeah.
He's sort of he's going back into the family.
Right. But just not doing his research sufficiently. Right.
Okay.
Like they say, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Okay.
So,
So what do they do today? I mean, the Jewish people don't marry the Jews like they used to. A lot of them marry goys. I don't understand that either.
Okay, so Harlan, how much time do
Another
you
day.
have to discuss that particular issue?
Yeah.
I mean, you're raising, of course, a very, I believe it's called endogamy. In other words, the idea of marrying people from your own, tribe kind of thing. So, of course, that's a big issue. It really is. So the question is, if are we living in exactly the same times as Bible times? Even within our tradition, let me say this much, even within our tradition, we say, that is, say, in the Talmud and within Orthodoxy, right? There's a sense that we are not the same as in Bible times. That in some ways the world has changed and human beings are in some ways different. What the implications then are as far as this, immersion and marrying out is an issue. I will tell you this, from everything that I've studied, the issue has more to do with the abandonment of Torah, okay? The abandonment of Torah and the fact that Jewish people, Israelites, are no longer observing commandments and are not doing what they were supposed to do. That is the real issue. And not so much the fact that they're marrying people who are non-Jews, because if those non-Jewish people choose to take on the values and the commandments, etc. I mean, you have the book of Ruth, which is very clear, because Ruth is a convert.
Yeah, yeah,
So
converts, yeah.
the issue is that, what I've said very often is that what leads Jews to marry non-Jews is the fact that neither the Jew nor the non-Jew is that committed to Judaism. Neither of them. It's in some sense, it's not an intermarriage because neither of them feel that it's that important.
Hmm.
So that really, I mean, that very, very simply, and it probably is an oversimplification, is essentially what's going on. And that's the nature of the objection. Not simply because they're not Jewish. It has more to do with values. So, okay. Having gotten myself into sufficient trouble, we can end on that note. I'll end the recording on
Okay.
that note.